Florida. We'll
This
start
is
there since we've
Solidarity
already
News
talked
Brief, bringing you
about
news
that a
highlighting the
little bit.
dignity of human life from conception to
It
natural
sounds
death.
like the
Let's
measure
listen
in
in on the
Florida
election night
has
coverage
failed.
of
It
2024.
requires 60% in Florida for a constitutional amendment. Can anyone give us a little background on the amendment in Florida? What I'm currently seeing in Florida, see if I can pull Florida back up, is that the approval currently has about 50%, 57% of the vote, but would require 60% to pass.
I think that's
Yeah,
a
I mean,
very
obviously, it's not great that 50% of Floridians are voting for this. It's basically an amendment to overturn the current law in Florida. Under Governor DeSantis, they passed a abortion ban in Florida up to someone help me out here. Sorry, I think it's 5-week abortion or 10-week abortion ban.
It's a
Um,
6 week, I believe, abortion.
Thank you. So this would have significantly increased the number of abortions in Florida. Like you say, it's not great that we have 57% of the population voting for it, but we can be thankful that it doesn't look like it's going to meet that 60% threshold, and that's already been called. So
During the last cycle, we sort of had the reverse of that, an amendment to create a 60% threshold in Ohio failed to pass. And then with only a 50% threshold, the abortion initiative passed in Ohio. So we have significantly unrestricted abortion there now. So you can see that the 60% has done us some good in this case.
Yeah, I think it's really unfortunate, though, in this instance, as Dominic said, that we end up with a result that certainly we're happy to see that it's not getting enacted into law, but uh, there's a very uh, small margin of voters, and I would expect that this is not the last we've heard of this amendment. I would wager that this will be back on the ballot in the next cycle, and I think that there's a lot more, obviously, that needs to be done to reach out to folks who have voted yes on this amendment and find folks that we can persuade. Um, maybe in different ways. Obviously, our party has a very different outlook on, the ways in which we can move the culture of life forward. So I think that that's certainly something that should be paid attention to in coming cycles, given that the folks that are trying to make this happen are not going away.
if I may say something, I really hope that I know there's pro-lifers down in Florida. I really hope that they could put a pro-life amendment on the ballot instead of having to always be fighting against these propositions.
One of the things I've kind of noticed going as I've watched all of this conversation, and Peter's done a very good job of clarifying this, but in the greater conversation, it seems that the pro-life versus pro-abortion argument is always a two polar opposites, and we're using the same words to mean different things. When one group says abortion, we're talking about, the elective uh, ending of an unborn life, and uh, the other side may be using that to include life of the mother issues. And what we need to do is try to find a way that we're all talking about the same language. I feel that is where we're losing a lot of ground, is not getting that message across that Peter has done so well, that, we do understand some of these cases where a mother should be allowed care with, get a miscarried child taken care of and other things like that. Maybe you could talk a little more about.
I'm sorry, Shane, I dropped you. Were you kind of throwing to me?
Oh, yeah, I was talking about the miscommunication we often have when we're talking about abortion, where one side is talking about the elective, termination of an unborn life, and the other side maybe talking about things that are healthcare, such as, a situation where neither the mother nor the child are going to live, or perhaps a child has already been miscarried.
I think in general, it's important to note that this is as divisive an issue as any in the United States, and that the pro-abortion side is working diligently to bring up any example it can find that will persuade people that existing laws are too egregious, or that they're too restrictive. In truth, there are no laws that prevent care for a mother. There are no laws that if a natural, I'll call it a miscarriage, occurs, that the proper care cannot be provided the mother. But we need to expect that there's going to be attempts such as these by the opposition to try to gain ground. And it's a very lucrative business, the abortion industry. And so as a result, they would like to have as much of it possible. To Michael's point earlier, it's concerning that we've allowed 57% of people to vote in favor of a measure, and it results in a defeat. But it is the first time that any such ballot initiative has failed in the United States since Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court 2.5 years ago. So we do need to take solace in that. There are a number of other ballot measures, 9 other ballot measures that are going to be decided tonight, and some of those are in states much different from Florida, where the likelihood is that they will pass, because not only do they have only a simple majority to pass, they're also in states where there is a higher percentage of Democratic or progressive voters. So to your point, Shane, yes, we do need to do a better job of messaging. We do need to do a better job of proposing public policy that will help to encourage women to carry their pregnancies, and to provide services that will make them more comfortable in doing so. But the reality is, we're always going to face opposition from folks that want to have abortion at any point during pregnancy. So let's be thankful for what we have in a result tonight, and continue to push forward in hopes that we can have yet more successes. The ASP has a very distinct approach, and one of the laments that I have is in my campaigning, the pro-life movement itself is in many ways fractured. There is what I'll call a social conservative side of the pro-life movement, and there is what I'm going to term a social justice side of the pro-life movement. And sadly, the two of them don't see eye to eye, even though they have the same ambitions to protect life. They would rather look at their differences than their commonality. So that's an area where I think the American Solidarity Party can be a bridge to find some of that common ground that we're noted for, and try to bring more cohesion to the pro-life movement, and perhaps more collaboration that will result in some improvement on measures such as these.
Thank you. I was just also looking at some of the results that are starting to come in from some of the states out west, and it does not look good for Amendment 79 in Colorado. It's currently, let's see, looks like it is currently passing with 62% of the vote. It needs 55% to pass. And Maryland, yes, Maryland, their amendment is passing with 75% of the vote at the moment. So we are looking at a couple more defeats. So the Florida result is looking good for once, a bright spot in what has otherwise been a pretty dismal situation for us. Move on and talk about a couple of, let's see, a lot of the issues are out west where polls have not completely closed yet, so we're not seeing a lot of results. Another issue that is going on, gerrymandering reform has been a big topic in a number of states, and Ohio does have that on the ballot today. Gerrymander reform is currently failing. It's the last two times around we passed with almost 75% of the vote. And this time the gerrymander reform is failing about 53 to 46. So it is not looking good. Ohio is one of the more gerrymandered states in the country. We were hoping to have clean districts after having, I think it was 5 or 7 maps deemed unconstitutional after the 2020 census. But judging by the current results, we may have to wait a little bit, though it's still a little early with results rolling in.
It's unfortunate. A lot of times these gerrymandering ballot measures can be, argued against by the party that happens to be in power at the time, and folks who are supporting that party um, sometimes will feel like they may be disadvantaged by a fair map. And I dealt with this when we would work on this issue in Indiana. Unfortunately, we don't have ballot measures there, so this was something that was we would have to push through the state legislature, which would be extremely difficult. Essentially asking lawmakers to give themselves less power. But the reality is that even if you ostensibly agree with the party that's in power at the time, it's rather incidental because when they don't need your vote and when they're picking their voters rather than their voters picking them, they are essentially beholden to their donors and to their party leadership rather than to their voters.
In Ohio, the current situation is approximately 55% of the vote would generally go to a Republican, and about 45%, give or take some, to the Democratic candidate. However, the seats, there is a supermajority of, just over 66% as far as the federal congressional seats go in the state. And for the state legislature, the state Senate is at like 80-some% Republican. So that's how they were able to get through our previous gerrymandering reform with a supermajority, they could essentially ignore it and just keep sending maps through. So we were hoping to get that taken care of. But the language on the ballot issue was rewritten by our Republican uh, Secretary of State, and there was a big to-do about that because the side proposing the amendment disagreed very strongly with the reworded ballot language. So, yeah, we're seeing very much the effects of extreme gerrymandering in every aspect of our government right now. Yeah, with other reforms, one thing we're seeing right now in Ohio, and you can feel free to chime in here, but we actually do have a third candidate on the ballot for Senate, and in a tightly contested race, the third candidate is currently polling greater than the margin between the two candidates. So we might be able to see something very exciting happen there.
Shane, help me out. So we're about 60% of the precincts reporting in Ohio. What are the numbers? Can you give us something empirical?
Yes. Right now, for the Senate, let me move back to the presidential race. We have, let me get this in so that I have all of the candidates. We have about little over 3.5 million votes in. That's about 58%, with Donald Trump currently leading 54% to 45%. And Chase Oliver, Richard Duncan, and yourself pulling in the remainder. We have a very good showing in Ohio with, like I said, with about 60% of the vote in. You have about 5,700 votes so far, which is about 4 times what we had in 2020, as I believe we got about 1,100 or 1,200 write-in votes then. So being under 6,000 with about 40% left to go is a huge improvement. I've been tracking some of the counties, and we do have some areas of very unexpected support going on. We have some areas to focus on for the future. And I do want to thank you. We've got a lot of volunteers coming out of the woodwork now for the Ohio Party, which is excellent. Going to uh, the ballot issue. The ballot issue is currently at 53% to 47% failing. And Brown and Moreno are going back and forth at about 49% to 48%, with Moreno jumping into the lead. Brown had the early lead. And not all counties have reported any data. Most counties have reported at least their early voting. Ohio did have about 2.6 million people vote early, which was great. Nearly 50% of my county voted early. Yeah, there are no updates. We are still at about 58%.
And Shane, correct me if I'm wrong, but our strength in Ohio is so great that that you got a vote even though you aren't even running for anything.
Yes, I did have someone inform me that they voted for me regardless of whether it would be counted. So, yeah, the disgust with a number of the candidates is definitely great if I'm getting votes right now.
One race with that people may not be aware of, where the American Solidarity Party is running a candidate, is in Pennsylvania for Auditor General. Um, that's Eric Anton, and there's not a lot to report there, but there are some interesting results, I think. Uh, so, with 20% of the votes counted in Pennsylvania for the Auditor General election results, Eric already has 3,559 votes. Now, obviously, it's a little tricky to do this sort of projection, but if that's projected out at the same rate, he would receive over 17,000 votes in that election, which would be a great result there for a non-presidential candidate in a race.
Also bodes very well for a potential, if we are able to get ballot access in the future there for the presidential race, that an auditor candidate, as you said, would get that many votes.
Does anyone know if Renee is going to come back and join us, or what happened to him?
I do not know if he will be back. I have not heard anything from him except that he's having computer problems, and that was shortly after we began. Here we can pick up a couple of other states here. Right now, it looks like in Florida, let's see, it looks like they still have 94% reporting. Peter Sonski has over 7,000 votes there.
Yay. Good job.
Peter, since we have you here, I would love to hear just your general reflections on the campaign. You know, now that we're here down to the wire on election day,
Well, I'll have more to say. I've been preparing some remarks that I will deliver in a couple of nights, but I can express that it's been very tiring at times, but it's also been very humbling. There's been a great deal of support, people expressing their gratitude for the American Solidarity's option for them. The two presidential nominees of the major parties are not appealing to many voters this year, and especially those that are pro-life voters. There's been a distinct change in the position of the Republican Party, and for that reason, an exodus of voter support, at least a measure of exodus. So I've been pleased that the American Solidarity Party has stayed strong in its principles, Mike, that we have not capitulated in any way with positions on our platform. This has been a hallmark of the ASP from its beginning. And I think that people sincerely appreciate the fact that we stay strong in principle. So often, I've heard throughout this race that, well, you can't win. You shouldn't be in the race. Well, winning is, I suppose, what most people evaluate a political party to exist for. Winning and having the support of a party so that you can get control of government and you can establish or undertake a particular agenda. But I think there's also a great deal that has to be said for just standing strong on principle and allowing people the confidence to know that they can support somebody without feeling as though they need to do the proverbial choice of voting for the lesser of two evils. So many people have expressed that they felt happy, that they smiled when they went in and voted, and that's encouraging. It means that the ASP definitely has resonated with many people, and we need to continue to develop that because we have a very distinct platform. Unlike other third parties that tend to have platform positions that are either largely to the left or largely to the right side of the spectrum, the ASP draws from both sides of that political spectrum, and as I've said many times, they work together very well. They harmonize and appeal to voters. So I'm pleased that we have a distinct approach, and I'm hopeful that the interest that we have garnered throughout this campaign will be maintained and developed further, and we can, a year from now, as we're looking at local elections, encourage some people to step forward and perhaps run for local election or seek local appointment, or very simply just become a more engaged citizen with greater knowledge of the principles that the ASP stands for.
And I can definitely see that happening. I've had a number of people contact me from within Ohio, from other states, asking how they can get involved, how they can run for office. You are, I mean, getting this message out, showing people that there is a candidate out there who represents a party they don't have to hold their nose and pull the lever for, is bringing them out. This is a lot of people I'm talking to who this will be their first race, and they are inspired by the fact that you are out there spreading the message, talking about whole life, talking about abortion from our perspective, talking about providing people with the supports to choose life, to make it the easy choice. So, yeah, we are definitely seeing that move for people to want to be where the rubber hits the road in the local elections. And a couple people like Vincent here are stepping up to make some runs at higher level offices. We're definitely going to be seeing a lot of growth and a lot of exposure thanks to your campaign.
One of the issues, obviously, that has been a driving factor, we already talked about Amendment 4 and the other ballot initiatives that exist around the country, obviously, is abortion. And the ASP has a very unique position on abortion, a whole life position. Um, what I have found challenging throughout the course of this campaign is developing relationships with what I'll call mainstream pro life organizations. Um, Perhaps, gentlemen, you've observed this, but the pro life organizations out there tend to have a very strong affiliation with the Republican Party. And this year, with the Republican nominee making the substantial changes that he did in the platform, walking back some of the long-standing positions that were there in defense of life, um, adopting in favor of uh, federal support, public support for IVF, in vitro fertilization, and even walking back some of the previous positions that the Republican Party has held in its platform regarding um, traditional marriage, marriage between one man and one woman. Um, the the sentiment among voters obviously has changed, but these pro-life organizations, because of the long-standing relationships that they've had, have really had nowhere else to turn. The ASP is still in a fledgling position. It's not in a position where, despite the showings that we've mentioned so far tonight, it's not in a position to deliver. It's not in a position to be even the spoiler that so many charged it with being. I hope that that will be the case before long, but I found it difficult for a lot of these organizations to give us time because they just saw us as um, too too immature as a party, if you will, without a lot of organization, without a lot of funding, without a lot of rank and file support. So I hope we've developed throughout this campaign. I hope we can be a better option for the future. I hope that the pro-life movement looks at the value that the ASP gives it, because having all of that relationship, that entire dependency on one party, has put them in a precarious spot. As the party has taken away some of the positions that it long held, it's left pro-life organizations to do nothing but to continue to support a candidate and a party that has essentially abandoned the pro-life movement. So we have a great opportunity, but we have to realize that our standing is still a young and up and coming party, hasn't given us a lot of footing in which we could develop those relationships quite yet. I'm hopeful that now that we are post-campaign, that there will be more opportunity to work with these organizations and to develop relationships and hopefully bring support from within them toward our party, and opportunities to work together to institute public policy.
Could I just say one thing really quick? I am in California here, and to give an example, is that I just went down to a vitamin store to get some supplements, and I started talking to a young guy, and I was saying I'm going to vote for Peter Sonski. I'm a member of ASP. He never heard of it. He wrote it down. He was interested in it. He actually was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to look it up." So I think there's a lot of potential. Really, I think we just need to keep on spreading the word of mouth, whatever. But there's a lot of people that are interested. I mean, I was surprised. I'll just say, like, he know who was going to vote for. He wasn't interested in politics. I just mentioned it to him. He says he's going to look it up. I don't know if he will, but I think word of mouth is a lot better sometimes than using the media. That's just my opinion.
Just in the course of this last weekend, we have developed a huge new following. It's been as people have been going to vote. Some people are voting early, as you know, and they come in and they look at the ballot and they see us and they are immediately curious. What is this option that I'm unfamiliar with? What are they doing? Obviously, there are states where the ballot has been mailed in advance and people have had an opportunity at home to do that research if so inclined. But many people who are just going in for the first time to vote over the last several days have just discovered us. So I think that there is potential for this. So ballot access is huge. Ballot access is going to continue to be a challenge because the two-party system controls all of the state houses in the United States. And if there's one thing that the two major parties agree upon, it's that they want to limit competition. So we'll need to continue to work diligently as a party to organize, to find sources that we can rely upon to assist us to obtain ballot access, because it puts us out there as a printed option for people to see and new people to learn about us. And they're enthusiastic when they do. So this is something that's essential. We need to continue this momentum that we've developed by preparing ourselves for the future right now, whether it's to develop within our own ranks people who are going to be able to solicit signatures for us, or whether it's to establish relationships with existing professional firms or individuals who are doing this work so that we can confidently call upon them. This year has been difficult because we had both Robert Kennedy and the No Labels effort very early on in the campaign seeking to obtain ballot access in all 50 states. And the resources that might have otherwise been available to the ASP were not, because they were obtained or contracted by one of those two groups. And if they were available to us, they might have increased in cost because of a higher demand. So those were realities that we faced this year. We we can never anticipate that, but we always have to be prepared for that potential. And so that's why I say I think it's important now to do that. Ballot access is going to be pivotal to our success in the future.
And on a positive note, in terms of the reach that we've gotten, we did get word today that our web traffic for the Solidarity Party website went through the roof. As compared to any other day of the year, this year was way off
How
the
many
charts.
people? I'm sorry. How many people went to the site? Do you know the actual number?
So we've got it's hovering around 8K. That was several hours ago. It was going off the charts in terms of what we normally get. For comparison, earlier in the year, a good day we might get 100, 500, 1,000 views. So I don't know what the latest stats are, and Peter, you may have access to what is going on your personal campaign website, but that's I think an encouraging sign.
It is, Mike, and I'm trying to just go back because as you're mentioning this, I did have a chat earlier with my team and made inquiry about that exact measure. And the numbers that you're citing are very similar to what we were experiencing on the campaign site, somewhere in the neighborhood of 8,000 to 8,500 views. It sounds small, I suppose, to some, but that's significant by comparison to what it has been throughout the course of the campaign. A big part of it, I think, was a utility that we created that directed people on how they should vote. In so many states, we are only a write-in option, and people are often unfamiliar with how properly to vote on a write-in status. So we created a utility that would allow people to have quick reference to their state and what the proper way of casting a write-in vote was. So that got a great deal of interest. But we've also linked from our site to the American Solidarity site, or at least to the page that refers to the platform. And that's been a way to help people learn quickly about our positions and our what might appeal to them specifically about the American Solidarity Party. So again, I'm working with my team now to try to get some of the results that we've been talking about tabulated and presented in such a way that they can be available to voters. I don't think we've discussed this tonight, but I think it's important to point out that in states where we have ballot access, 7 states that the American Solidarity Party presidential campaign had ballot access. We've talked about Ohio and Florida, but we'll be seeing results very soon for Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, and then the final 2 states are out west, and Alaska and Hawaii. So we probably won't see results from them immediately. But in many of the other states, we are only a write-in status. And as you know, it takes time because it usually means that an individual, a person, has to search those ballots and record the votes, while the scan devices can identify that a third party, a write-in vote has been made. It doesn't register necessarily who that write-in is for. So,
well, I put up a yard sign in front of my house, and I told everybody I knew. So I hope to get a lot of votes here. But I think anyway, yeah. So I'm hoping you get a lot of votes in California because I know you are right, and I wrote you, and I told everybody I know. So hopefully it goes well.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm thrilled to be. I'm also in California. Thrilled to be voting for. Thrilled to have voted for you earlier this evening. You know, a lot of people may not know. You were talking about how it's difficult to get on the ballot. You know, California made it even harder this year to even be a certified write-in candidate. In fact, you know, people may not know, but Peter Sonski is the only certified write-in candidate in California. So, pretty incredible.
And I'm deeply, deeply grateful for the efforts that the party members went through. You, Dominic, you know, and so many others. Vince, I know you were involved, but Desmond and really
Renee.
all of the leadership throughout the state. We needed to get not just an elector for to fill the requirement. We had to get an elector and an alternate, which is unheard of. Even the two major parties don't have to meet that requirement. So when Dominic suggests that these are egregious requirements, he's not exaggerating. They're asking us for more than they ask of the major parties themselves. And that's simply to be able to be a write-in candidate. So it can hardly be considered as fair, but it's law. And we have to comply until we can get into a position of power and make a change ourselves or persuade others to do so.
And I just want to echo what I heard. You know, I was grateful to be able to vote for you, and I had a lot of folks who I came out of the woodwork in the last couple of weeks. You know, just dropping off signs around the my little towns in Podunk, Northern California, in the valley here. We had I had people from multiple people in every town, wanting signs, getting them together, getting them to meet each other, and starting those conversations. That was all really encouraging stuff. So.
I'm excited, and I agree. And I think we could get a very high turnout of votes from California. So I'm very optimistic about that. And that's part of why I'm so exceedingly grateful that we were able to secure that status, even though we were the only campaign that was successful in doing so.
Well, I'm telling everybody I know to vote for you, so I hope I can get the word out. There's a lot of millions of people here, but you never know if enough people vote for you.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we won't know. Right, we won't have probably the full write-in. The write-in results released later. So usually mid-December, I think, by California. Although since you're the only one, it's possible we'll get them earlier. Although I wouldn't count on it. But.
I think what they're going to require, of course, is that for each individual county to go thoroughly through all of its ballots and tabulate them to see that they were, they took out all of the Mickey Mouse votes, and then give an accurate count to the state. So, Dominic, to your point, it may take some time, and that's not unique to California. It'll be the case in many other states. So, for those that are watching that are eager to know, has their vote been tabulated? Chances are a vote has been recorded for a write-in, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the write-in itself, the name, has been at this point tabulated and shared with the Secretary of State's office, which will ultimately certify the results. To Dominic's point, it could be another month or more before we know precisely that total in all 50 states. We'll know some sooner, hopefully, but others not so long. And listen, there's still the states of South Carolina, South Dakota, Oklahoma, and Nevada that that don't allow write-ins. And Mike Vick, maybe you can tell me, am I missing any other states that don't permit write-ins at all?
No, I think that total is correct there. Which it's unfortunate, not only that we wind up in a situation where write-ins are exceedingly difficult to even secure access to, but in some states, as you say, we have no access to. I will say on that write-in score, and you mentioned this earlier, Peter, I'm deeply grateful for the tool that you all had on your website to let folks know how to vote for you, because there are quirks in states, and if you go to that tool, you'll see some states it's recommended that we write you in some states it's recommended that we write in your name and Lauren Onak's name. And so, the difficulty doesn't stop at getting the certification. It just begins there, and you have the problem of potentially people misspelling a name, or not putting in what's recommended in the state. So I'm grateful for that tool.
And we did it precisely for that purpose, Mike. But I know you've got probably the most experience among all of us here on the call with regard to this. And I do want to single out local elections officials, because I know that they will diligently try to make sure that these votes are recorded. I've had a number of people tell me today, oh, I didn't have enough room, or oh, I didn't do it precisely this way. And the response that I've tried to give them is that the election officials will do their very best to understand what your intent was in casting the vote. And if the intention is plain, then your vote will be recorded properly. No election official wants to invalidate a vote because of a simple misspelling or a simple omission of a name. I think plainly they want to see that those votes are properly recorded.
I know Renee is not here. Would it be okay if they would ask? He was gonna. I thought he was leading the group. He was gonna ask me some questions of why I'm running. But if it's appropriate now, I'll talk about it. If not, I'll just wait.
And if you gentlemen don't mind, I'm going to excuse myself. It's 10 p.m. here on the East Coast, and I'm an early riser, so I've got an early start tomorrow. But I'm grateful for the opportunity to join you tonight. I'm really grateful for all of the support that you provided throughout the campaign, and looking forward to continuing to work with you. Even though the campaign ends today, I don't think that my role with the party as the 2024 nominee is going to immediately dry up. I think there's going to be a lot of follow-up interest, and I'm excited to keep that momentum that I talked about earlier, so that we can capitalize on what we've built throughout these months of the campaign.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night.
you, Peter.
Thank you.
All right. God bless, guys.
Thank you.
And so this is as seamless as possible. I will have to drop off as well. So thank you all for inviting me, and I appreciate the chance to talk.
All right. Thank you, Mike, for joining us, and take care. All right. Vince.
Hey.
Hi. So what did inspire you? I know just a little bit of your history. I don't
Right.
want to say too much about it because I've had so many people inquire that I might mix
Are you
you and
serious,
someone else up.
man? How many people are interested in me for real? I don't know. All right, I'll just say, here we go. Well, okay, I have notes, but Richard Nixon, I don't know if he used to say, if you got to rehearse it, then it's not real. I don't know. I write notes down. Anyway, I have loved politics my whole life. I was brought up in a family that loved politics, and pretty much, I don't know if you guys know Dr. James Hannock. He's out here in California. He said, yeah, I want you to run. I'm like, okay. I went to Long Beach State. I was in government there. I was a senator from College of Liberal Arts. And then, Desmond told me about how Ted Lieu is just going around putting tweets out that he can support, abortion or anything and challenge the bishop. So I'm like, oh, wow. I mean, let the bishop say basically like, I dare you deny me communion. So I was like, okay. As a Catholic, that's pretty bad thing to do, I think. And I'm also just concerned about this district. I mean, we've had really bad homelessness here. People are concerned of their safety. People are concerned about why nothing is being done about it. I mean, honestly, it could be taken care of without the government if people would take them off the streets. But it's a chronic thing. I went to church this morning, and there was a guy, a homeless guy, and he's sitting there. People don't even talk to him. So this is a big issue here in our district in California, 36th district. Ted Lieu, yeah, he has a lot of education, but he's consistently for abortion. He doesn't seem to do much about homelessness. He's not really apparently, wanting to do anything. I'll give you an example of what I'm up against, though. Like the Republican who was a nominee in the primary, she got 25,000 votes. He got 125,000 votes. So it would be a big task to turn that around. And I'm trying to campaign like 2 years ahead of time, so give enough time to even have a chance. It's a big district. It's a very divided district. The north of the LAX where I live, it is mostly there's homelessness there. There's a lot of more Democratic voters there. In the southern part, there's no homelessness. There's a lot of the streets are clean, etc. And also, I just really value the American Solidarity Party because I think there's finally a party out there that really, like Peter was saying, combines both left and right into one particular, a party. A lot of the members happen to be Catholic. I think we could expand even to all people. But, it's going to take work. I got to organize a team of people. I got to, it's not easy to do. I mean, Dr. Hennig said you could just do it from your house, porch, not campaign at all. I don't think that's realistic. So basically, I really feel that there needs to be a big change in this district. And if I could actually win the seat, I guess it would be the first American Solidarity candidate in Congress, which would be nice. And I mean, I really feel that there needs to be so many changes. I mean, I talk to a lot of people online, and the abortion issue. I mean, there are some people out there who are just entrenched in it. They are not going to change. And I've always been passionate about being pro-life my whole life. I don't really. It's hard to relate to people who consider that to be something that's okay in any way. So I don't really. I know. I mean, if they ask me, yeah, I'll in a debate with Ted Lieu, yeah, I'll say, yeah, I'm pro-life and I'm 100% pro-life. But I don't even know if he'll debate me. Who knows? He hasn't debated anybody before that I know of. But anyway, I mean, long and short of it is that there needs to be somebody in Congress who would represent the American Solidarity Party. Hopefully, we can get other people elected to Congress. Before I actually was considering running for city council, that was a long shot, but I thought I'd kind of put my feet in the water, so to speak. So anyway, that's kind of my story. Yeah, and what resonates with me also is how workers. I talked to a guy yesterday who was working as a delivery guy about unions. How Dr. Hennig was telling me how unions are important, the sharing responsibility with the worker and also the ownership of the company. So I like it. I really enjoy it. I'm excited to be in this party. Something I'm really, hopefully we can grow. I always thought that, there would be a party that was really able to just share all these issues, consistent life ethic, environment. Like, wow. I mean, I think has a potential, like I said before, to appeal to a lot more people. Unfortunately, with the ballot access and things like that, I want to reach out on TikTok. I want to reach as many people as I can. Maybe get some big donors out here. I don't know, Mel Gibson, some of the deep pockets, that would want to fund it. I don't know what's going to happen. But anyway, I appreciate the time, fellas. I just want to get the word out. And I think a lot of things can improve. I think the Republicans, they have to fight them. Basically, the top two vote getters get on the final ballot. And if Ted Lieu's, 100,000 votes ahead, yeah, American Solidarity candidate, if they worked hard enough, could get enough votes. So, thank you.
One of the things we've go ahead,
go ahead.
Dominic.
I was going to say thank you, Vince. I mean, And we were talking with Peter and Mike about how we really need to continue bringing more candidates, right? Especially, obviously Congress isn't really local elections, but there are a lot of congressional seats in California, and and we could certainly use all of the candidates we can get. So, I want to put the word out there too. Just if anyone is interested in running for any of these positions, in 2 years in California, I'm on the California committee, and we would love to have a dozen, 2 dozen candidates. That'd be fantastic. So, Vince, thank you for what you're doing, and we appreciate you
Yeah.
getting started early. We're going to do everything we can to support you in your run.
All right. Dominic, where are you in the state?
I'm up in Northern California near Sacramento.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, it's
We're
a big
trying to get
state.
we're trying to get an early start in Ohio too. I've mentioned probably more than anybody ever wanted to hear that we've had several people in Ohio reach out wanting to run for office. So we're holding our first I want to run for office event on the 12th of this month so
Wow.
that we can get people
Fantastic.
started.
Great.
And it's one of the failures we saw in previous elections was that the American Solidarity Party candidates were getting started too late to really gain traction, which is why we moved our primary back. I think we moved it back like 6 or 7 months so that Peter could get more of a running start and get ready for the campaign. And I'm thinking that has paid off some. So we're trying to do that now. We're trying to get uh, volumes of candidates at both statewide and local levels so that we can get them campaigning, not together exactly, but so that, we can do more bulk advertising kind of things with our candidates and let people know that this is a party that's growing. They are getting a presence at not just running these informational campaigns, but they're putting the rubber to the road, getting local candidates where our values can really be expressed. And by showing that we are working at multiple levels all at the same time, we can show people that we are more of a viable party, that we will be making progress, and that will sort of feed itself for any state that goes ahead.
Well, I know one thing that it is winnable. You were mentioning earlier about gerrymandering, In my opinion, I mentioned to some people when Peter came out to USC here or in the Rose Garden. I don't know if you guys agree with this, but couldn't it be the case that, the state legislatures draw the boundaries of the districts, right? Then couldn't they like make it, if they're a Democratic, party or Republican, they could make it like so that basically it's almost impossible for the opponent to win if they put so many percentage of Democrats or Republicans in the district. So essentially, like majority of races are already predetermined. They're very little competitive nationwide races. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, like I mentioned in Ohio, our districts are so gerrymandered that there's only usually about 3 or 4 competitive districts. Uh, the Senate is 87% Republican, I believe, and the federal House seats and the state House seats are both 66, 67% Republican, even though the vote tends to only go statewide about 55% Republican. So they've managed to gain a supermajority by, what do they call it, packing and cracking areas
Good.
yeah, they draw the weird lines so that they've got the right number of districts, but they've broken the opposition by taking their neighborhoods and splitting them. We had one district in Cincinnati where the district line went right through a school and up through a neighborhood for absolutely no reason. Uh, yeah, it's just
well, is this proposition in Ohio? Who would control drawing the districts if it passed, or what is this thing?
there would be a 15-seat citizen panel that would handle the district. It's kind of a complicated formula for who gets on, and there's still a little room because I think a third will be selected by one party, a third by the other party, and then a third will be independent. So we would have 15 people drawing it, and the major parties would have equal representation, along with 1/3 of it being truly independent
Well,
people.
I'll just say this in my campaign, if I'm fortunate enough to even get on the ballot and all that, is that I think I used to, I walked for, I said I was running for, city council. I walked for a particular candidate, and you go door to door, and in my opinion, there's nothing at the personal touch. I think that's more important than anything else, like meeting the people, trying to inspire them to vote. But kind of was depressing, and I think I heard a lot of Christian people don't even vote. Like a lot of them just don't even go to the polls. And if that's really true, then I somehow got to activate them. Like if I was going to run a campaign, I would go to the churches, I would go to police departments, people who would be interested in the American Solidarity Party because they have Christian values and stuff. But if what I heard is true, that Christians don't vote, I mean that's a problem. I think if you can't turn them out.
I wanted to break in for a second. There's a significant amount of the vote it looks like, in Nebraska. There are two measures. One is Initiative Measure 434 that says, except when a woman seeks an abortion necessitated by medical emergency or when the pregnancy results from sexual assault or incest, unborn children shall be protected from abortion in the second and third trimester. And let's see, that one, which we would hope people would be voting for. Initiative 434 is at 52% against. And then Initiative 439, all persons shall have a fundamental right to abortion until fetal viability or when needed to protect the life or health of the pregnant patient without interference from the state or its political subdivision. Fetal viability means the point of pregnancy when, in the professional judgment of the patient's treating healthcare practitioner, there is a significant likelihood of the fetus sustained survival outside the uterus without application of extraordinary medical measures. And we would hope that people would be voting against that. Measure 439 is currently, scroll a bit here, at 57% for. And yeah, so it does not look good for either of these measures. And unfortunately, except in Florida, it looks like Life is having a very dismal showing, and we have a lot of work ahead of us in future elections.
I agree with that, man. There's so much that needs to be done, especially like with young people. And some people like have either of you been on TikTok? Do you ever go on TikTok or no? All right. So I was kind of prepping myself for this by going on TikTok and debating with these guys and trying to find out where they're at. But if these people really believe that it is okay to do, well, they essentially wipe out children like that, then there's a lot of work to be done, I think. But at least Roe v. Wade was overturned. I think that was a major good step in the right direction. Me personally, I would love to see a constitutional amendment banning abortion at the federal level. I don't know if that's when that's going to happen. I think it will happen in the future, but I don't know if that's going to be 20 years or whatever. But first you have to go back to the states, then you got to get the Congress to pass it. There's steps to do it, but like how slavery was ended by the 13th Amendment, we got to have a unborn life amendment and ban abortions all the way through. Yeah.
We need to
I believe
also
that's part
work
of the.
on. Hey,
I believe that's
welcome,
part of
Renee.
the. Hey, I believe that's part of the Solidarity Party's platform.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things
Where are you? I can't even see you, Renee. Where is he?
yeah, we need to start pushing our economic message a little more as well. I think like 75% of abortions are elected for economic reasons. And the American Solidarity Party has this fantastic economic platform that would provide people the supports they need through everything from living wage, the ownership economy, uh, paternal and maternal leave. There are just so many things we have to offer that even if it takes 20 or 30 years to get an amendment like that through, our economic policies could start chipping away at the elective abortions in the meantime. I mean, most people do not want to choose abortion, and they do so out of fear of some sort of economic hardship. They fear they'll lose their job. They feel they'll lose their opportunity to complete school. There are just so many things that economically stand in the way of choosing life, and we have the platform, we have the ability, and I think we need to be pushing that just as hard as we push our pro-life talk, because we are the pro-life for the whole life party, and that message, when we combine, pro-life plus supports, really resonates with people. I have had a lot of people who are kind of hardcore say that, well, if someone was giving that message, I could get behind that, but they're just not hearing it from enough spots. So we definitely have our work cut out for us there.
Well, definitely, I agree, but I also think that a lot of people are just, oh, it's. I've talked to people that biologically, none of it makes sense, but I think you're right. We need to the economic angle I hadn't really considered before, but yeah, that's true. Renee,
All
hello.
right. Yeah, Renee, now that you're with us, did you have any topics that you wanted to bring to the front?
Yeah, so there's two amendments or two propositions in Nebraska, which are one is for limiting abortions past the first trimester or banning them, and I
Yeah, we
believe
just
it's
talked
passed.
about that right before you got on.
Okay, perfect. And you mentioned the second one as well. Yeah, it looks like in Florida, you already mentioned it, but Amendment 4 seems to have not passed, and that's official now. So that's a good win for the pro-life movement and for sustaining the right to life of the unborn. And there's also, in terms of the presidential election, it looks like Peter Sonski received over 6,000 or 7,000 votes so far. And I think Randall Terry, got 5,000 votes. He's from the Constitution Party. So that's worth noting there. And I think both of you, all of you gentlemen, covered the other topics well. So if Dominic, you have anything else to add?
No, that's it for me. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, thank you. So thank you and good night. And remember that all human life has dignity from conception to natural death. Have a good night.